In the heart of the opulent Topkapi Palace, amidst the sprawling grandeur of the Ottoman Empire, lived a man of contradictions. Sultan Ibrahim. He was known to history as Ibrahim the Mad. But was he truly mad, or was there method in his madness? For 17 long years, this future sultan had been locked away in the notorious Golden Cage, an opulent prison reserved for Ottoman princes. Now, finally, he was free to rule. At last he stepped out into the sunshine, blinking against the bright light of day, not realizing he would soon be remembered as one of the most ruthless and cruelest sultans in Ottoman history. Ibrahim's rise to power was nothing short of miraculous. Imprisoned since the age of 10, he had somehow managed to not only survive, but thrive in his gilded cage. He studied, he trained, and he waited patiently for his moment to take the throne. And when it came, he wasted no time in stamping his authority. In the year 1623, at the ripe age of 27, he became the Sultan of the vast Ottoman Empire, which stretched from the Arabian Peninsula to the edges of Eastern Europe, with a population of more than 20 million subjects. This was a realm where cultures and religions intertwined, creating a rich tapestry of diversity. But this diversity was also the source of Ibrahim's greatest challenge. The Ottoman Empire was a melting pot of ethnicities, including Arabs, Kurds, Persians, and Turks, and keeping them all united under one banner required a steady hand and a keen intellect. Fortunately, Ibrahim had both. His first few years in power were marked by vigor and success. He crushed rebellions, expanded the empire's borders, and introduced sweeping reforms that modernized the Ottoman state. One of his first acts was to restore the Janissary Corps, a powerful military force made up of elite infantry soldiers who played a crucial role in the empire's victories. He also reorganized the tax system, making it more efficient and equitable. Moreover, Ibrahim was genuinely concerned for the welfare of his people. He built schools, hospitals, and mosques, and he took a personal interest in the development of his empire. Ibrahim was easily the most beloved sultan in Ottoman history. Subjects flocked to him, eager to share their ideas and contribute to the empire's prosperity. He was known to hold court for hours on end, listening to the grievances and suggestions of his people. "I am the Sultan," he would declare, "but without you, my subjects, I am nothing." It seemed Ibrahim was destined to be remembered as a great and benevolent leader, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. The very isolation that had made him so attentive to his subjects now threatened to consume him. As Ibrahim grew older, he became increasingly paranoid. He began to distrust his advisors and surround himself with sycophants, who fed his delusions of grandeur. He started seeing enemies everywhere, even among his closest family members. This paranoia was understandable. Growing up in the Golden Cage, Ibrahim had been conditioned to believe that everyone around him wanted him dead. To survive in such an environment, he had learned to be suspicious of everyone, including himself. But while this instinct had helped him survive, it was now destroying him from within. His fits of rage became more frequent, his mood swings more extreme. Once he threw a tantrum because his cucumber juice was served warm. On another occasion, he ordered the flogging of 2 courtiers simply because he did not like the color of their turbans. Ibrahim's paranoia also extended to his mother, Kosum Sultan, who had been instrumental in getting him released from the Golden Cage and installed on the throne. She was a powerful woman who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But Ibrahim began to suspect that she was plotting against him. In a fit of rage, he ordered her to be imprisoned. "You are nothing but a viper," he screamed at her. "I trusted you, and you betrayed me." But Kosum remained defiant. "You are the viper, Ibrahim," she shot back, "and one day your venom will destroy you." Despite the warnings of his counselors, Ibrahim decided to go to war with Venice. He assembled a massive army and marched on the Italian city-state, but the Ottomans were defeated. And as the years went by, the war became a humiliating stalemate. Ibrahim's grip on reality was slipping. He was becoming more and more detached from his advisors, his family, and even his own sanity. Back in the palace, Ibrahim's wife, Turhan Hatun, was growing tired of her husband's erratic behavior. She had seen firsthand the toll that the war and paranoia was taking on him, so she hatched a plan to bring back his old counselors and get him to end the war with Venice. But before she could put her plan into action, Ibrahim caught wind of her scheme. He accused her of being a Venetian spy and ordered her to be put to death. As loyalists close to Turhan Hatun were purged, Ibrahim grew more and more isolated, cutting himself off from the very people he needed to keep him grounded. To make matters worse, the war with Venice was draining the Ottoman treasury. The empire was on the verge of bankruptcy. In a desperate attempt to raise funds, Ibrahim ordered the execution of many of his wives and concubines, believing that their wealth would help ease the financial strain. Among them were his first wife, Sibala, whom he had imprisoned for years on trumped-up charges of adultery, and his daughter Aiz, whom he suspected of conspiring with her mother to usurp the throne. But perhaps the most disturbing act of Ibrahim's reign was the alleged drowning of 280 women from his harem. According to some sources, Ibrahim, in a fit of rage, ordered the concubines to be thrown into the sea. He apparently believed that they were plotting against him, and he was convinced that they had supernatural powers that allowed them to communicate with each other through the water. Whether or not this story is true, it has become a symbol of Ibrahim's descent into madness. Ibrahim had always been fascinated by water. He built elaborate fountains and aqueducts throughout the palace grounds, and he spent hours every day cruising around the Bosphorus Strait in his ornate barge. But now his obsession with water had turned sinister. He began to believe that the very water he loved so much was conspiring against him. He started seeing ripples everywhere, and he thought they were messages from his enemies. He became convinced that the water was trying to drown him, and he responded by drowning everything and everyone around him. His paranoia reached its peak when he ordered the construction of a massive watertight tomb for himself. He planned to spend his final days inside the tomb, believing that it would protect him from his enemies, but the tomb was never finished. By this point, Ibrahim's mind was completely shattered. He was no longer the brilliant and compassionate leader who had taken the empire to new heights. He was now a broken and frightened man who saw enemies everywhere. His counselors realized that the only way to protect the empire from Ibrahim was to remove him from power. They conspired with Kozum Sultan, who had spent years plotting to secure her son's throne, to overthrow Ibrahim. On May 18, 1648, Ibrahim was deposed and imprisoned. His mother, who had once been his biggest supporter, oversaw his execution by strangulation. She watched as the life drained from his eyes, and his body grew cold. Ibrahim was succeeded by his young son Murad IV, who would go on to become one of the most revered sultans in Ottoman history. Under Murad's rule, the empire began to heal. The war with Venice was ended, the economy stabilized, and the people of the empire breathed a collective sigh of relief. As for Ibrahim, he was remembered not as the great reformer, but as the madman, who had nearly destroyed the empire. So was Ibrahim the mad, truly mad. In a way, yes. He had all the trappings of a classic mad king, the paranoia, the erratic behavior, and the disregard for logic and reason. But beneath the madness, there was a man who had been broken by years of isolation and trauma. Ibrahim's story is a warning to all of us who wield power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Even the brightest and most compassionate leader can be consumed by paranoia and madness, if they are cut off from reality and surrounded by yes-men. Furthermore, Ibrahim's story shows the dark side of absolute monarchies. When one person has too much power, they are not held accountable by anyone, not even themselves. This can lead to catastrophic decisions that can harm not only the ruler, but the entire empire they are supposed to be serving. But Ibrahim's story is not just a cautionary tale. It is also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Despite being imprisoned for 17 years, Ibrahim never lost hope. He studied, he trained, and he waited patiently for his chance to lead. When he finally got that chance, he took full advantage of it. He introduced sweeping reforms that modernized the Ottoman state and made him wildly popular among his subjects. Unfortunately, Ibrahim's success went to his head, and he became intoxicated with power. But even in his darkest moments, he still showed glimpses of the brilliant and compassionate leader he once was. In the end, Ibrahim's story is a tragedy. He had everything: wealth, power, and the love of his people. But he threw it all away because of his own demons. His story is a reminder that even the greatest empires are only as strong as their leaders, and that sometimes the line between greatness and madness is very thin indeed.